Well, welcome to our portion. I call it Torah for everyone. But you know what, I was thinking about it today, because really not everybody wants to listen. And everywhere you read in the scriptures, in the Torah, in the Tanakh, it's always about a very few people, a remnant. You know, when God spoke to Noah and he told him to build the ark, when he took him almost 100 years to build an ark, and he was telling everybody it was going to rain. Only one family got on the ark. When the angels came to Abraham to tell them that they were going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham negotiated. That's our negotiation skills. Negotiated with God and said, if there's 50 people, will you save it? If there's 40, and it went all the way down to 10. And they couldn't find one righteous man in Sodom and Gomorrah, which was why it was destroyed. So the message, God's message, the message of the Torah is not a popular one. If you want popularity, you'll find it in a lot of other places, but not in the Torah. Sadly, sad to say, one of the things it says is that we have ears, but we don't hear, we can't hear. We have eyes, but we can't see. So my desire in reading this is to wake up a spark in us that makes us put God first in everything, every single thing that we do. You know, the more I see about what's going on in the world and the more I read the Torah, I see the answers are all here. And the answers lie in the root cause of things, not in putting bandages on a wound. Like if your car breaks down and you see a light on the dashboard, and you take it to the mechanic, and he says, "No problem, I'm going to fix it for you." And he takes a pliers, and he cuts the wire that turns off the light on the dashboard. Is he doing anything to fix the car? You don't see the light anymore, so you think things are better, but the car is not running any better. And that's what we have a tendency to do. We have a tendency to fix our problems with Band-Aids instead of looking at the root. And the root cause lies in what's called ultimate truth. And ultimate truth lies in our Torah. And I love this book, Devarim, because Moses is speaking to our people and telling again all the things that this next generation, because remember, the first generation all died. We're all going to die in the desert after 40 years, except for the two people from that first generation, Joshua and Caleb. So Moses is talking to the people and warning them. So this is the background of what we're going to read today. So let me just share the screen. Now, remember, you can interrupt and ask me any questions or ask me any comments. I'm very open to that. But let's read it together, because it's in reading it. You know, we tend to only leave the reading to either the rabbis, or if you go to a church, to the pastors, or if you go to a Catholic church, to the priest. You leave it to them to read the scriptures for you and interpret them. But God wants us to understand. He gave it to the simplest of people. We were slaves when we left Egypt. When we went to Mount Sinai, he spoke to us. There were no rabbis, no scholars there. He wants us to understand so that we could do and we can obey the way we said we would. So let me go here. Now this one I'm using is Sepharia. And the portion, as I said, is called Vaetchanan, which means I pleaded with Yud-He Vav-He at that time, saying, Adonai, Yud-He Vav-He, you who allowed your servant, meaning Moses, to see the first work of your greatness and your mighty hand, you whose powerful deeds no God on earth or in heaven, or on earth can equal. So right away we see that there are no other gods who are as powerful as our God, the one and only God. You know, there are many, many many gods on this earth. If we go to India, you'll see that there are 33 million gods, believe it or not, in India. Even the cows on the street are considered a god. They don't, children can starve, but they don't touch a cow. And there's gods in Greek and Roman mythology. There's gods in, and we're going to look at some of the gods that we have today. But remember, none of those gods are equal to the God of our people, the creator of the whole universe. And Moses said to him, "Let me, I beg you, cross over and see the good land on the other side of the Jordan, that good hill country and the Lebanon." Just like Sonia was saying before, how she would love to be in Israel. And I have felt that so many times, how much my heart is to be there. But somehow we're still here, and Moses wanted to see the land. But he said, God was angry with me because of you. He's blaming the people, and would not listen to me. Yud-He Vav-He said to me, enough. Never speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the summit of Pisgah and gaze about to the west, to the north, to the south, and the east. Look at it well, for you shall not go across yonder Jordan. It seems like reading this, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, wow, God is tough. Don't speak about this to me again. You know, God's not afraid of hurting our sensitivities, our sensibilities. He says things as they are. He says, look at it well, for you shall not go across to yonder Jordan. You know, we're so afraid to say things to people in case we hurt their feelings. But God wants us to tell the truth. He loves his people. He loves Moses. But the fact is that he was not going to be able to go across. And he said, you're to give Joshua his instructions and imbue him with strength and courage. For he shall go across at the head of this people, and he shall allot them the land that only you may see. So here we see the next generation. Moses is not allowed to go. And in many ways, you know, Moses, he was 120. He was tired. He had to let go to the next generation. And Joshua was with him the entire way. And notice, Joshua is not related to Moses. He's not one of his children. Very often we think that the next generation needs to be the children, but the children don't always take after the parents. Here it was Joshua who never left the side of Moses. And it reminds me even of my own rabbi. My rabbi looked for years. Our congregation has been, we've been established since 1993. He came to Montreal in 1992, and he built our community. And I was with him from the very beginning. I helped to co-found this congregation, but I was always working outside. And then after many years, I left the work that I was in for many reasons, and I ended up being his executive assistant and worked with him and was with him all the way. And then when he passed away, it was like the baton was given to me. We didn't have a male to take over, but we still consider him to be our rabbi. And he imbued me with strength and courage with everything that he taught. So I can really relate to Joshua. Meanwhile, we stayed in the valley near Bet Peor. And now, Israel, give heed. And the word for give heed in Hebrew is Shema. That word Shema is very important, and we'll see it a little bit later as we continue to read. Give heed to the laws, to the chukim. Here we see chukim, the mishpatim, and the rules, the regulations that I am instructing you to observe, so that you may live, enter, occupy the land that the Lord your God, the God of your fathers, who are our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was giving us. Very clear. Now, this line is so important, and so many people do not pay attention to it. You shall not add anything to what I command you, or take away anything from what I command you. But what did God command us at that point? We had left Egypt. We went to the base of Mount Sinai, and he gave us the 10 commandments. And this is what he's talking about. Keep the commandments of your God, Yud He Vav He, that I command you. So that's all he's asking us to do. Keep the commandments, don't add, and don't take away. Every religion. See, this small community here is different from most. People ask me, so who are you? What do you believe? Are you part of a movement? Are you Orthodox? Are you conservative? We are Jews and non-Jews, like Joshua was a Jew, natural-born citizen of the land of Israel, and Caleb was a Kenizzite. He was a ger. He was the stranger who joined us like Ruth did. They joined together and they became one people. And anything that would be added would come later than the 10 commandments that was given to us. You saw with your own eyes what Yud He Vav He did in the matter of Baal Peor. Now remember what Baal Peor is. That's where they tried. We were worshiping many other gods, and your God Yud He Vav He wiped out from among you every person who followed Baal Peor. While you who held fast to your God are all alive today. So what is he telling us? Hold fast to our God. Hold fast to our commandments. The other books are there. They're fine if you want to read them. But don't replace God with anything. Why? It says, see, re. I have, the word is limadti, which is I have taught. Lilmod is to teach you chukim and mishpatim. These are the chukim. We'll see a little bit later on. And the mishpatim, as my God, Yud He Vav He, has commanded me. Again, the same idea. For you to live in the land that you're about to enter and occupy. You're going to see he repeats things over and over again because we're such a stiff-necked people. Observe them faithfully, for that will be proof of your chokhmah and your bina, wisdom and understanding to other peoples. That's why he wants us to observe them, so that they will look at us and say, look what he says here, who, on hearing all these laws, chukim, they will say, all the other nations, surely that great nation, meaning Israel, is a wise, chacham, and discerning, binon, here, from bina. This is a wise and discerning people, a great people here. And look what it says here, this great nation, Hagoy Gadol. You see, we take the word goy as meaning Gentile, but goy means nation. We, the Hebrew nation, were taken from the rest of the nations, the goyim, all the nations, that's what it means. We are a nation too, goy gadol. That's important for us to see, because very often we attribute names to things that religion has given us. We have to take out what does the Torah say, not put into it what we think it says. For what great nation, kimi goy gadol, what great nation is there that has a God so close at hand as is our God, Yud He Vav He. He's the only one. Whenever we call, when we call out to our God with all our hearts, with all our souls, with all our resources, he hears us. What other nation has a God like that? What great nation has chukim and mishpatim as wonderful as here the word is tzadikim, as righteous as all this teaching? Here it says Torah, as this HaTorah hazot, asher anochi noten lefanechem hayom, that I am giving you this day. There's no one else that has as beautiful a set of rules and regulations as our God has given us. But take utmost care and watch yourselves scrupulously. Be very, very careful. It says, V'shmor nafshecha. Guard your hearts. Me'od. Scrupulously, very much, so that you do not forget the things that you saw with your own eyes. Now, we sitting here today didn't see those things, but we have witnesses who did, and we can rely on those witnesses because 3,500 years later, we're still here reading it. And there's proof enough in the history of our people of how God has always been with us, even today, even in our own lives. And so that they do not fade from your mind as long as you live, and make them known to your children and to your children's children. That's what we were supposed to do. What are we supposed to make known to them? About what happened on the day that you stood before your God, Yud He Vav He, at Horeb or Mount Sinai, when the Lord said to me, gather the people to me, that I may let them hear my words, my 10 commandments, in order that they may learn to honor me, to revere me as long as they live on earth, so that they may teach their children. How many of us have failed to do that? Our parents failed to do that with us. Their parents failed before them. But somehow, it seems very often after the third and fourth generation, as we'll see a little later, somehow one of us or two of us in our family are drawn. There's a calling on our life, and we start to come back to the Torah. We start to listen to these words. We come back to what he's saying. And then we are to teach our children. We all have grown children or grown nieces and nephews, grown people who may not want to listen to us anymore. But hopefully we can live what he's teaching us so that they will learn to live it too, because they follow by example. You came forward and stood at the foot of the mountain. Here he's reminding us what it was like at Mount Sinai. The mountain was ablaze with flames to the very skies, dark with densest cloud. It was dark, hoshech, like the ninth plague. And God spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of the words. But look at this. You perceived no shape, no form, nothing but a voice. How many religions today have created a form, a shape of a God to worship? I remember when I was involved in Hinduism in my earlier years, and there was right here in Montreal, the Sai Baba Center. And you go into the Sai Baba Center, and there's a huge statue of Sai Baba, a God made in a form. You go into churches, especially Catholic churches. You see Jesus there up on the cross, a form of a God that they have made. And now Christianity will say today, well, we don't believe in the Catholic God. We don't have a form. But there we see pictures of Jesus everywhere, who they worship as God. So we have to be careful, because here, if any other book, New Testament, Talmud, any other book does not agree with what the first book, the Torah, says, we must question it. We heard a voice. It says, Kol, the voice of God. When God declared to you the Brit, the covenant that you were commanded to observe. What was it? The 10 Commandments, inscribing them on 2 tablets of stone. How much clearer does it have to get than this? At the same time, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh commanded me to teach you, to impress upon you the Chukim and the Mishpatim for you to observe in the land that you are about to cross into and occupy. For your own sake, therefore, be most careful. Again, he repeats, since you saw no shape when Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to you at Horeb out of the fire. Be careful not to act wickedly, and make for yourself a sculptured image in any likeness whatever, the form of a man or a woman. And here it doesn't say man or woman, because it would say ish or isha. It says very clearly, zachar v'nekeva, male or female. Very clearly, do not make any images of male or female in order to worship them. Do not make any form of any beast on earth. You'll see in several religions, forms of animals, worshiping of elephants. In totem poles have different totems, they call them, animals that are worshipped. The form of any winged beast that flies in the sky. The form of anything that creeps on the ground. The form of any fish that is in the water below the earth, in order to worship them. It doesn't mean that we can't have a sculpture or a beautiful statue of something, but not to worship it. And when you look up to the sky and behold the sun and the moon and the stars, the whole celestial host, you must not be lured into bowing down to them or serving them. These your God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, allotted to other peoples everywhere under heaven, but you, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, took and brought out of Egypt, that iron blast furnace. That's where we were forged in Egypt, in that we were forged, we were made as a people in Egypt to be God's very own people, as is now the case. So this here, I was looking up because Miriam and I and many other people that I know were involved in astrology. So here it says, do not be involved in astrology. And it says here, astrology is the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies interpreted so as to have an influence on human affairs and the natural world. It helps to fulfill the need for a sense of spirituality, to explore our identity and purpose and place in this world. In other words, what it's saying is that God doesn't give us our purpose or our identity. It's these heavenly hosts, but it says that God allotted them to other peoples everywhere under heaven. So that does that mean that it's okay for them to do and not for us? What we need to understand is that God was slowly taking us as a people away from the paganism of Egypt. He didn't wrench us away from the gods, but he separated us, and he was slowly showing us that we would no longer need these things. He gave them to all the nations. There may be some truth in them, but he's telling us as a separate nation, don't follow those ways. Follow me. So we slowly.
Remember, Peggy?
Yes.
Remember when we were talking, the word Allah that might be a bad translation, because God didn't say, I give you these the
Yeah,
planets.
it does. It does. The word here, I looked it up again, Miriam, and the word here is tachat. Wait a minute. Et elachecha otam lechol ha'amim tachat kol. Wait, no, here. That's not the word. Chalak. Hang on. The word is chalak. It's not doing it. Hold on a second. Halak. It says here to divide, to share, to allot, to apportion, to assign. He did assign it to the nations of the world.
But what does
But
that mean?
it means that in the same way, do you remember we read those verses where God was telling us what we could eat and what we could not eat? We're going to see it later on in Devarim. And one of the things that it says was that if there was an animal that died on the road, we were not to eat it, but to give it to the Gentiles. Does that mean that God hates the Gentiles and that he's allowing them to eat things that are going to poison them? No. What it means is that he's taking us out, again, separating us. In those days, the only way to separate us were very visible ways. He would separate us in the way we were dressing, in the way we were eating, in the things that we were about to do. Today is not the same anymore. Today, our separation comes from our behavior and how we follow the commandments. So the Lord God allotted to other peoples everywhere under heaven, but we were not to follow those things and to slowly show the others the dangers that lay in them. That's my understanding of it.
I guess I'm just not quite, I know what you're saying, but I'm not so clear about it, what it means. I just know what I don't believe it means. I don't believe God allotted other gods to people to worship. It was like they were doing that. That's what I believe it means, that they were doing that, but we are now being slowly brought out of that. But not that he said, well, here the Gentiles are going to worship planets and all that. You know what I'm saying? I think he's saying that's what they're doing, and we're coming out of that, and we're not to do that. We're to be a light to the rest of the world, so that they're not to do that, that there's only one God.
Well, that sounds very reasonable to me. Remember, it's very difficult to translate from Hebrew into other languages. Sometimes there just are no words to describe the picture that God is trying to give us. We have to step back and look at it as a mosaic and see what he's trying to say. And what you're saying makes sense. We need to, dig a little bit to see what is he saying. Does anybody else have any understanding on that?
I think also you have to look at other things rather than this would look, if you just took that, you found that, and that's, you didn't read compared to anything else. What is God saying to the whole world? He's saying, the 10 Commandments is for the whole world. We're to bring it to the whole world. And, the fact that Caleb and Joshua, one's an Israeli native, and the other is a ger. He's not part of Israel, but both of them enter the land, and both of them are part of the Commonwealth of Israel. So that's telling you that it's for Jewish people and Gentile people. So you have to look at the totality. That's why I think that this doesn't mean literally God said, here are the planets, you can worship the planets.
Right.
He's acknowledging that that's what they do. But anyway, I guess that's why, the word a lot sounds strange, but whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's difficult to translate some things into English, but what you say sounds right to me. I don't know if other people agree, but but usually the Torah will interpret itself, and we can't take one verse out of context. We have to look at the whole picture of what God is saying. Yeah, you're right. Now, where were we? God was angry with me on your account. You see how human Moses is. He wanted to go into the land. God's angry with me because of you, and swore that I should not cross the Jordan and enter the good land that your God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, is assigning you as a heritage. So here, this good land, it's so clear over and over and over again that God gave us the land to inherit. For I must die in this land. I will not cross the Jordan, but you will cross and take possession of that good land. So here he is like a loving father. And he's going to be, Moses is standing there longingly, longing to go across the land, across to be in the promised land. But God is telling him, no, it's not. Now Joshua needs to take over. He's the warrior. You're tired. And people have a tendency to worship people as gods. We do it all the time. So it was time for Moses to leave. But he's warning us, just like if you go on a vacation and you leave your children at home and you give them the instructions, you're warning them, don't bring wrong people into the house. Don't get involved with bad company. So here Moses is telling this next generation. Remember, this is the second generation. We're right at the edge of the promised land now, and we're going in to take it over. Take care then. Do not forget the brit, the covenant, the 10 commandments that your God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, has given you, concluded with you, has given you. And do not make for yourself a sculptured image in any likeness against which your God has commanded you. For your God is a consuming fire. He's impassioned. And when you have children and your grandchildren and are long established in the land, look what he says. He's warning us. He's warning the people of Israel. He's not warning the rest of the world. He's telling us, should you act wickedly, if you do wrong, anything that goes against my commandments, and if you make for yourself a sculptured image in any likeness, causing your God displeasure and vexation, I call upon heaven and earth this day. He's making a vow to witness against you that you shall soon perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You shall not long endure in it, but shall be utterly wiped out. You know, the first time that we were exiled from the land, does anyone know where we were exiled to, where we went to? The first exile? Babylon. Where is Babylon today?
Iraq.
Iraq, modern day Iraq. That was the first expulsion. And we were disobeying. We were doing exactly what we weren't supposed to do. And one of the main things God had told us was that we needed to keep the Shemitah year. Every 7th year, we needed to leave the land fallow. Do not touch it. The following year, that year, the 7th year, we could harvest from it and let others come and take from it. The 8th year, we could plant. And the 9th year, we could then reap from the harvest again. So we had to learn to trust God. That's always been the root of everything. Learn to trust and do what he's telling us to do. So we were kicked out of the land because we were in Babylon for 70 years before we were able to come back when Nehemiah rebuilt the wall around Jerusalem under King Darius, who was modern day Iran, Persia. At that time, that Persian empire was our friend and allowed us to rebuild the wall around Jerusalem, and we were allowed to go back and rebuild our city. But here, it's saying, so we were there 70 years. Every 7th year, we had to leave the land alone. So 7 times 70, 490 years, we disobeyed and did not keep Shemitah, which was why we were out of the land for 70 years. God said, my land belongs to me. My land will rest. If you don't do what I tell you on my land, you're going to be out of it. We need to learn what God is telling us so that we don't keep making the same mistakes again over and over. God will scatter you among the peoples that he did, just like he did in Babylon, and only a scant few of you shall be left among the nations to which the Lord will drive you. We have come from many nations. Some of us here come from Poland, from Russia. My family comes from Ukraine. Some come from Germany. We come from all parts, and there are very few of us in the land. Look it up, even in Canada, out of the millions of people who live here, how few we are in this land. Only a scant few of you shall be left among the nations to which the Lord will drive you. There you will serve gods of wood and stone, made by human hands, that cannot see or hear or eat or smell.
Why is God making so difficult for Jews to obey all the rules and everything? Why did he make it so difficult?
Is it really difficult? We're going to go through some of the things that he told us to do. They're simple.
I mean, there's so many things we're not supposed to do it.
Only 10. That's the only thing, Sonia. 10. Tell me.
What?
The 10 commandments. That's the only thing he asked of us. When you say so many things, what are you referring to?
Well, when Jews were crossing to Iraq or something, they were not supposed to go there. Is that it?
You mean when we were exiled into Babylon? What we were just saying?
Yeah.
When we were exiled, it's because we disobeyed what God was telling us. He asked us, leave the land alone every 7 years. Was that a difficult thing for us?
Well, what does it exactly mean? Leave the land. To leave the land alone.
Remember, we were farmers. We were building. We were we went into the land. We plowed. We made vineyards. Just like today, you go to Israel, and the land is fruitful. So, but God said, every 7th year, don't touch it. Whatever it gives on its own, take from there. He says, in the 6th year, I will provide enough for you that you will have enough in the 7th year to eat. It was a little bit like when we were in the desert, and he said every Shabbat, he was going to provide us with a double portion of manna. We were complaining that we didn't have food in the desert, even though we had lots of cattle. So God said, I'm going to give you this manna. Every day you go and you gather it, and you can eat it, you can cook it any way you want. But on Friday, I'm going to give you a double portion. So on the 7th day, you don't have to go out and gather it. The 7th day you rest. But still, people went out on the 7th day. We didn't trust him. He told us in the 7th year, leave it alone. I'll give you enough in the 6th year that in the 7th year, you're going to go look in your gardens and you're going to have plenty of food. Not only plenty for you, but plenty for the neighbors, for anybody who's living with you, even for the animals. Then in the following year, the 8th year, go ahead and plant again. The 9th year, you can then harvest. You can reap the harvest of your hard work. So
what happens if during the 7 years the people go hungry and nothing's growing? So,
but that's not what God said. God said, I will give you enough.
Enough for the 7
in the
years?
6th year. Yeah, no, it wasn't 7 years. It was only 1 year, really.
But you said not to touch it for 7 years.
No, he said every 7th year.
Yeah.
Leave it.
Oh, okay.
Every 7, not to go for 7 years.
Okay.
No.
I didn't get it right.
Yeah, only leave it. Leave it for the season. Don't touch it. There's going to be enough that the land will produce enough. I'm going to give it to you. And then
But what was the reason for it? Why did he say that?
so we could learn to trust him. It's not easy for us to trust. You see, there's a difference between emunah. You know what emunah means?
No.
Emunah is faith.
Oh, okay.
Everybody has faith in something. Like you have faith that when you sat down on the chair tonight in front of your computer, the chair was going to hold you. You didn't think twice about it. You had faith. You trusted your chair. Okay? But if the chair broke,
But we cannot follow these rules that was done so many years ago with now. I mean, for now, we cannot do the same according to the Torah.
why not?
Because the atmosphere is changing, everything else is changing. We get too much of rain or too much of that or too much of that.
But right now, what we're talking about are the basic 10 commandments. Okay, the basic 10. The Shemitah is for the land. The Shemitah, the people are observing the Shemitah still in the land today. But I'm talking about right here in Devarim, just like we did at Exodus, when we read the book of Shemot, we were standing at the base of Mount Sinai. We heard, and here we're going to read a little bit more about it, okay? Hold on, Sonia, because we're going to read it. So it says, here we are serving gods of wood and stone. What do you think some of these gods of wood and stone are? What would that look like to us today? Made by human hands. Maybe our architecture, the things that we build, the things that we cannot see or hear or smell or eat. You know, there's so many gods that we have made in this world. You know, what is a god? It's something that has power over us, something that makes us turn our face from the God of the universe toward it. And we'll talk a little more about that in a bit. But look what it says here. If you search there where we are, here in Montreal or California, wherever we are, if you search, you will find Yud He Vav He. If only you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul, when you are in distress because of all these things that have happened to you, and in the end, return to and obey your God. For your God is a compassionate God. He will not fail you or let you perish. He will not forget the covenant that he made with your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to take care of you, to bless you, so that we could bless others. You have but to ask about the past that came way before you, ever since God created mankind on earth, right from the beginning of Genesis, from one end of heaven to the other. Has anything as grand as this ever happened? Has its like ever been known? Has any people heard the voice of a God speaking out of a fire as you have and survived? Has any deity ventured to go and take one nation from the midst of another by wonderful acts, by signs and wonders, with war, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, an awesome power, as your God, as he did for you, Yud He Vav He, in Egypt before your very eyes? It's been clearly demonstrated to you that Yud He Vav He alone is God. There is no one else. From the heavens, God let you hear his divine voice to teach us, to discipline us, to test us on earth, and let you see the great divine fire. From amidst the fire, you heard God's words. And we're going to hear his words soon, Sonia. We're going to hear his commandments. And having loved your ancestors, meaning our forefathers, God chose their heirs after them, personally, in great divine might, led you out of Egypt to drive from your path nations greater than you. We were smaller than all of them. They were greater than us, and yet we defeated them. They were greater and more numerous than us. And God took us into their land and gave it to us as an inheritance, as is still the case today. Know therefore this day, and keep in mind that Yud He Vav He alone is God. How many times is he repeating this? Yud He Vav He is God, no other gods. In heaven above or on earth below, there is no other. Observe God's chukim and mishpatim, which I command you this day, that it may go well with you and your children after you, that you may long live, remain in the land that your God is assigning to you for all time. Then Moses set aside 3 cities on the east side of the Jordan, to which a man who has killed someone could escape, one who unwittingly slew another. He didn't do it on purpose. He built cities of refuge without having been an enemy in the past. If it was an accident, they could go to these cities. He could flee to one of these cities and live. And these were the names of the cities. This is the Torah that Moses set before the Israelites. Here we're going to see what they are. These are the edut, the chukim, the mishpatim that Moses addressed to the people of Israel after they had left Egypt beyond the Jordan. They had taken.
Can I say something?
Of course.
You know, it sounds very harsh when the Torah God said, I commend you.
Yeah.
It's like, it sounds very harsh. You got to do it or else.
Right.
Or you're going to suffer or whatever.
Okay. I understand. So if you're a mother.
Sounds very harsh, you know, it's like.
So Sonia, you're a mother and your kids are running around in the kitchen while you're cooking chicken soup on the stove. And you're telling them, don't touch the stove. Get away from here. Get away from the soup. So you're going to hurt yourself. Are you harsh? Or do you care about your children that they won't get hurt?
But there's different ways of saying it, not to be harsh, not to sound harsh.
Yeah, well, the first few times you have patience. And then the 4th and 5th time, you lose your patience and you give them a bit of a pachentuchas because you know they're going to hurt themselves.
But it's not the way to do it. You don't give them a pachentuchas.
No, well, that's why
there's other ways of doing it.
Yeah, that's why we have children who are so disrespectful and disobedient today.
Yeah, but you cannot do it with force or with harsh things, you know. That's what we're teaching now. Because children, you know, we're brought up in that way. And it's not a healthy way to do it.
But look at the world today.
To be afraid, you know, like, don't be afraid.
But we should be afraid of the fire.
Yeah, but you got to know what's right and what's wrong.
But when you're 2 and 3 years old, you can't know.
Yeah, why not? You can show them, you can teach them what is wrong and what is right.
And if they don't listen over and over and over.
Well, so then you know, you do it differently. You don't have to hit them or anything, you know.
But well, God didn't hit us. He's telling us.
He's not telling us. He's commanding me.
Yeah.
Commanding.
Because he knows evil. He knows what evil is and he wants to protect us.
Yeah, but not with condemning, but not to command. Command, you know, tell you have to do this because
Well, I wasn't there, so I didn't hear his voice.
But you're trusting the Torah. That's what they said. He said, who wrote the Torah anyway? God?
The first 4 books, God spoke to Moses to write them down. This 5th book, Moses is writing from memory. And whoever finished it, because he was gone, maybe it was Joshua, they were writing down, he was writing what he remembered. But all I know,
I mean, all these things were interpreted in different ways, you know. It's not like straight talk, like black and white, you know. I mean, here is very it explains it, everything. But actually, in the Torah, you interpret different things. That's why you have so many philosophers, and they were interpreting. That's called
true.
what, Mishnah, or I don't remember all the other books.
Yeah, there's a lot of books, but basically, Miriam, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think, again, when we're reading these books, there's a thing, we have to look at the whole thing. Like Sonia, remember that before God was saying how much he loves us, and you don't have to look far, he's right there, like all these tender things. So you have to look at the whole picture. So I also used to think, why is God so harsh and he kills all these people? It was very hard for me to understand that. But when you look at the whole picture and try and look the way God sees to the very heart of everything, he had just explained how much, you remember, Peggy, you just read that God is right near us. He just explained that he's a God of love and compassion, and etc., etc. So then when he says God commands, it's because you don't have to command something if it comes so naturally. We've just come out of, there's so many instances where the Israelites were worshiping idols, and worse than just worshiping idols, they were doing what some of the pagan nations were doing. Could you imagine taking your child and burning them on offering them to a god? These are some of the horrendous things that the Israelites were doing. We were actually doing those things. So try and see the whole picture. When God says, I'm a loving God, etc., he wouldn't command it if we were, had we never disobeyed, let's say, and we always just, had a beautiful, loving relationship with God, loved us, and we were whatever, we didn't offer to idols or anything. I don't believe it would have been worded this way. But this is after he just finished saying, you've got to stop worship, don't worship idols, don't make this, and don't look at the sky and bow down to the planets and all this stuff. And then you see commanding, because at this point, we've been so disobedient that it can't just be, I'm a loving God, and then, I don't know if you get what I'm saying, that the whole story is not that. I know some Christians say, the Old Testament, the God is an angry God, and the New Testament God is a compassionate God. God is all of those things, so you have to see that he's talking to a group of people who have done so many disobedient things. And these things are not because God doesn't need us to be obedient. It's for our own good, so when we keep on doing things like that, and worshiping idols and sacrificing our own children, my God, that's so horrible, that at some point, it has to be clear. And I don't know, that's the way I see it. You have to see God's whole nature.
Let me continue, and because some of these things will get clear as you read it. That's why, Sonia, it's important to read the whole Torah in context, like Miriam was saying. Let's continue, and you'll see some of the things that he said that you say are difficult to keep. Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, Shema Israel, the Chukim and the Mishpatim that I proclaim to you today, study them, observe them faithfully, because God made a covenant with us. A covenant is he's a partnership. He made a covenant that he would do these things if we would do other things. It wasn't with our ancestors that God made this covenant. This Brit, these 10 commandments, was with us, the living, every one of us who are here today, including you and I. Face to face, God spoke to you on the mountain out of fire. I stood between Yud-Heh Vav-Heh and you at that time to convey his words to you, for you were afraid of the fire and didn't go up to the mountain, saying, and here's the first commandment. I am your God, Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of slavery, You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself any sculptured image, any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, in the waters below the earth. This is number 2. Don't bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generations of those who reject me. So you see, he is being rejected. And for 3 generations, we are going to suffer the consequences of that rejection. But in the next generation, when those come back to love him and keep his commandments, then forever he will show his love and his kindness to us. Number 3, don't swear falsely by the name of your God. Don't put words, don't speak things that God never said. For he will not clear one who swears falsely by God's name. It's like we can't put words in God's mouth. If he didn't say something, don't say it, because basically we're making ourselves like a God. Those are the first 3 commandments. Those are called mitzvot. Those mitzvot have to do with our relationship between us and our God. Then these are the next 2. Observe the Shabbat. Keep it separated from the rest of the week. That's a commandment, a mitzvot, but it's a chukim, a chukot, a chukah. And 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. The 7th day is the Shabbat of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male or female slave, your ox, your donkey, any of your cattle, or the stranger who is with you. You see, he's telling us here there's no Shabbos goy. The Shabbat is for everyone, so that your male and female slave may also rest the way you do. How many peoples have kept their slaves working 7 days a week, their ox, their animals 7 days a week? That is cruel. And God is saying, don't do that. I'm giving you.
But the very religious people have a Shabbos boy.
But what they're doing
But
is
they need it. So it's wrong what they're doing.
Exactly. What's wrong? It's wrong what they're doing.
But these are the very extra, I mean, these are the very religious people doing that.
I know. And when Yeshua was here at the beginning, during the time of the Romans, he would give them heck. He was saying, you run and you make proselytes. You run miles to make one convert. And then you make him do things that even you cannot do. Make him, these extra laws are so burdensome to us that we think it's God who's harsh. God is just telling us what to do out of his mercy and compassion and love for us.
But there's always what is the word I'm looking for? There's always exceptions. There's always exception, and he's not talking about exception. There's always in our life that we follow the rules, everything, but there's always an exception that we have to do it.
Well, like on Shabbat, if you're a doctor or you're a nurse and it's to save a life and you have to work on Shabbat, that's an exception.
Yeah. So
but you have
I don't know why do people use the Shabbos boy, for what purpose? I don't remember.
So that because they've made so many extra rules about the Shabbat, because the only thing that God is telling us is don't work, melachto. Don't earn a salary, and don't close your business on Shabbat. Don't make anybody else work. But remember, this is what God is telling us to do. We're not doing it. We're not being obedient to God, and then we wonder why we suffer. We are bringing it on ourselves. He says, remember, you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and your God freed you. So if your God is a compassionate God and frees you, shouldn't you then free somebody else? He wants us to obey this so that the whole world will live in peace and harmony. Is the whole world living in peace and harmony right now? And here, number 5, honor your father and your mother, as your God has commanded you, that you may long endure and do well in the land that the Lord God is giving you. How many children today truly have a reverence and an honor for their parents the way we had for our parents or our grandparents? We would never speak back to them. We would never do the things that the kids are doing today. It's unbelievable. These are chukim. The middle two, the Shabbat and the honoring of the Father, are called chukim. These are commandments that may not make full sense to us, but God is telling us to do it because He knows the consequences of them. And then we have the last 5 are the mishpatim, how to love our neighbor. Don't murder them. Don't premeditate the murder. Remember, because we just read before that God made 3 cities that we could go to if the killing was by accident. But this is premeditated murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't bear false witness against your neighbor. Don't say things about your neighbor that aren't true. Don't gossip about them, bringing down their character. Don't covet. Don't crave something that your neighbor has that you have to have and you'll do anything to do it. Those 10, Sonia, are the only ones that God is asking us to do. Which of them are too hard to do?
Which one? Show me which people are really following these 10 commandments. You say no adultery. Shouldn't be any adultery. So why is it in real life the men are allowed to do adultery, but not the women?
Well,
according to Jewish law, if a man commits adultery, he's not being punished. He cannot, you're not punished, but the woman does adultery, that she has to be punished.
According to Jewish law, actually, both had to be punished. They were both stoned.
That's right.
Yeah, they were both stoned. Both is wrong. But in those days, it wasn't considered adultery because men could have many wives. In those days, it would be a relationship that is adulterated. In other words, you could be in a man could have several wives, but he would have to be responsible for them and take care of them all because women couldn't work in those days.
But that's not adultery if they married another woman.
Exactly. But for the woman, for her to sleep around with somebody who wasn't her husband, was very bad for her. He's always doing this to protect us, not to punish us. It's to protect us from harm. It says God spoke those words to the whole congregation. He didn't speak other words. He spoke those words. It says here, where is it? With a mighty voice out of the fire and stone and dense cloud. We were not to add to them. 5:19. Where is it? Velo yasaf. Here, velo yasaf. Don't add to these 10 commandments, these 10 sayings. Don't add anything. And every single book after the Torah adds to these 10 commandments. They're the only ones that were written in stone by the hand of God. And this is what God is asking us to do. If we as a people, if we as Israel would come together as one nation and all do and learn to follow these commandments, if all our rabbis and all our teachers would teach us to follow these and we would do them and we would be a testimony to the rest of the world. Remember at the very beginning, it's when I read, it said, if you would do these things, they would call you a nation of chokhmah, wisdom, and bina, and understanding. That's not how the world is looking at us right now. The world is looking at us as a nation that they hate because they're of jealousy, but mainly because, believe it or not, because we're not obedient. We're not being obedient to the word of God. And the enemies are coming against us. We need to turn back. We need to be obedient, and then our God will protect us. You heard the voice out of the darkness while the mountain was ablaze with fire. You came up to me, all your heads, your leaders, your elders. and said, our God has just shown us a majestic presence. Imagine if we saw that today. Imagine if we saw Mount Royal all of a sudden in fire, and God comes down on the top of Mount Royal, and you hear his voice and you know it's him. We would be shaking. We heard God's voice out of the fire. We have seen this day that how humankind may live, though addressed by God. God, let us not die then, for this fearsome fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of our God any longer, we shall die. They were afraid. We didn't want to hear his voice. We were scared to death. So we told Moses to speak for us, to speak to us. For what mortal ever heard the voice of the living God speak out of the fire as we did and lived? Well, Moses did. Moses heard his voice from the burning bush and he lived. You go closer and hear all that our God says, and then tell us everything that our God tells you, and we will willingly do it. So the people are saying to Moses, you go to God and you let him tell you, and then you come and tell us. The Lord heard the plea that you made to me and said to me, I have heard the plea that this people made to you, and they did well to speak thus. May they always be of such mind. May our people always be of such mind to honor me and follow my commandments, so that it may go well with them and with their children forever. Does this look like a God who hates us? He wants us to do this because he's warning us. It's like if you're going on a trip, and Sonia and I hear on the news that that 3 miles down the road, there's the earth, like the earth is opened up, and you can't go down that road, and you have to go down another way. And I call you on the phone, Sonia, don't go down that road. You're going to get hurt. There's no road left. Am I being harsh or cruel? I'm warning you because I know there's danger ahead. Go say to them, return to your tents, but you remain here with me. Here he's talking to Moses. I will give you the whole Torah, the Mishpatim, the Chukim and the Mishpatim, that you will impress upon them, teach them, tell them, for them to observe in the land that I'm giving them to possess. Over and over, he's telling us, these are the only things I'm asking you to do. Be careful to do as God commanded you. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Follow only the path that your God has commanded you, so that you may thrive. He wants us to prosper, so it goes well with us, that you may long endure in the land you are to possess. And this is the Torah, the Chukim and the Mishpatim, that your God has commanded me to give to you, to be observed in the land that you're about to cross and occupy. Over and over, the same message, so that you, your children, your grandchildren may honor God, Yud He Vav He, and follow, as long as you live, all the divine Torah that I command you, so that you may live long. Obey, Shema Israel, willingly, do it willingly, be faithful, so that it may go well with you, that you may increase in a land flowing with milk and honey, as the Lord God of your ancestors spoke to you. And here we read this every Shabbat. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. He is the only one. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. Love the Lord your God. V'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol meodecha. Love him with all your heart, with nafshecha, all your soul, with all your resources, everything that's left, your abundance. Honor him. Give back to him. Give to others. Take to heart these instructions, these words, which I charge you, I command you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home, when you're away, when you lie down, when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hands. Let them serve as symbols on your forehead. Inscribe them on the mezuzot of your house and on your gates. When your God brings you into the land that was sworn to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when it's assigned to you, great and flourishing cities that you did not build. Look what God is giving us. Great, flourishing cities that you did not build, houses full of all good things that you did not fill, wells that were already dug that you did not have to dig, vineyards and olive groves that you didn't plant. And when you eat your fill, be careful that you don't forget who freed you from the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. You know, this is so different than what just happened, not long ago, when Ariel Sharon told us that we had to get out of Gaza, and we had to leave all the homes, the businesses, the vineyards, all the beautiful things that we had built. We gave them to the people of Gaza. And what did they do?
Yeah, what did they do?
They burnt everything down.
What's going to happen now?
And here God is saying,
They have to go back to Gaza. They have to take care of, they have to be there. The army has to be there to
there's
protect.
no doubt about it. And it tells us right here in the Torah. Look, we're going to read it soon. Revere your God and worship God alone and swear only by his name. Do not follow other gods, any gods of the peoples about you. For your God in your midst is a jealous God. Don't let the anger of your God blaze against you, wiping you off the face of the earth. Do not test your God as you did at Massa. That's when we complained we had no water. Be sure to keep the commandments, his mishpatim, his hukim, that your God has commanded you. Do what is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may go well with you, that you may possess the good land, and that all your enemies may be driven out before you. And it says here, when in time your children ask you, what do you mean by the decrees, the laws, the rules that God has told you? And you say to them, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and God freed us from Egypt with a mighty hand. And God did before our eyes marvels, wonderful signs and wonders in Egypt against Pharaoh and all his household. And God freed us from there in order to take us and give us the land promised an oath to our fathers. Then the Lord commanded us to observe all these laws, to revere our God for our lasting good, for our survival, as is now the case. It will be therefore to our merit before our God to observe the whole Torah as God has commanded us. And listen to what he says. When your God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, brings you to the land that you are about to enter and possess, and God dislodges many nations from before you, the Hittim, the Gerashim, the Amorim, the Canaim, the Perizzite, the Hivites, the Jebusites, 7 nations much larger than you, and your God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, delivers them to you, and you defeat them, you must doom them to destruction. Don't make terms with them. Don't give them any land. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your children away from me to worship other gods. And the Lord's anger will blaze forth against you, promptly wiping you out. Instead, this is what you shall do to them. Tear down their altars, smash their pillars, cut down their sacred posts, and consign their images to the fire. You are a people consecrated to your God. Of all the peoples on earth, your God chose you to be his Am Segula, his treasured people. It is not because you're the most numerous of all people that the Lord grew attached to you and chose you. Indeed, you were the smallest of people. It was because he favored you and kept the oath made to your Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your fathers, that the Lord freed you with a mighty hand and rescued you from the house of bondage, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore that only your God, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, is God, steadfast God, who keeps the divine covenant faithfully to the 1,000th generation of those who love him and keep his divine commandments, but instantly requites with destruction those who reject, never slow with those who reject. In other words, immediately they're going to face destruction, those who reject God. Therefore, observe faithfully the mitzvot, the chukim, the mishpatim, which I charge you today. So he's telling us, when we go into the land, do not make any terms. Do not come to terms with the people there. Get them out. Right from the beginning, when we had King Saul was told, kill all the Amalekites, and he didn't do it. Oh, but look at these people. Look at the beautiful women. The animals are good. But we didn't understand the depth of depravity that these pagans lived under. Horrible, horrible things that they did to women. They had sex with animals. Their gods made them do things that were absolutely vile. That's why God was telling us.
Jerry's falling asleep.
I know. I have a good soft voice. I put him to sleep.
Ah,
Oh, well, what could you do?
he heard it over and over again, I guess.
That's okay.
Oh, it's very difficult.
It is difficult because it's hard for us now.
But the society is changing. We think differently and we want different things. And there's women's movement, the rights of women, like shouldn't be abused, and it's different.
But the Torah gave women rights. At the time of the Torah,
yeah, but why do
women were like animals?
Yeah, but why is it in our religion that you're making a shidduch and the girl has to marry whatever the parent decide to marry? She's forced into marriage.
But Sonia, this is added to the Torah. This is not Torah. This is Talmud. You have to understand that there's biblical Judaism, which we follow in this community. We follow what's called biblical Judaism. It's not rabbinic Judaism.
What's the difference?
It's a big difference. The biblical Judaism refers to the Torah. We read the Torah year after year after year. We go back and we work to find out the principles. These principles of the Ten Commandments, how do we take them from the time of Moses and apply them to today? Because the principles don't change. The times may change, but the principles don't. But there are so many laws and extra regulations that the rabbis have added while we were in diaspora, while we're in the land, to keep our people together. So we have to decide, what do we follow? Who do we follow? As for me, I follow God. That's what I want to do. I want to follow God. And it's not an easy thing to do because the world is constantly pulling us. Like today was a gorgeous day. I knew I needed to prepare for tonight. For the last 2 days, gorgeous days. I would rather go down to the beach, go down to the pool and just relax. But I made a commitment to do this. So I stay home and I read the words and I see what God is saying, speaking to me. How can I live? Where in my life am I being disobedient to God? I wake up in the morning every day asking that. God, order my day. Show me. And he does. We don't realize what a good relationship is. Many of us have not had good relationships in our lives. Maybe we haven't had a loving husband or a loving wife, or maybe we don't know how to be with our children. But God wants a relationship with us. He's not giving us orders that you do it because I said so. Those were God's.
You said something interesting, that you believe in the Torah. It's not the same as a rabbinic. It's a Judaism. It's following the real Torah. But there's the rabbinical Judaism that's changing the whole thing. And that's why they're adding to the Torah, they're making certain rules and stuff like that that are made up not by God or whatever, by Moses, or it's the rabbinical, court is making these changes. And
Right.
that's why many people, Jewish people, are turned off with that.
Exactly.
They think, they get confused. They say, hey, this is not right. Why should we, But
Exactly.
so this is the difference. And
So the
people
problem is
too.
the problem is they get frustrated. Then
Yeah,
they leave Judaism
exactly.
and they leave God. They throw out the Torah
Exactly.
too.
That's right.
That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I want us to see that in this small community, we refer to the Torah. Like, let's say for Pesach, I have a cousin who's so religious, she has 2 kitchens, one for the year and the rest, and one for Pesach.
Right.
My Bubby used to have 2 sets of dishes.
Right.
Everything was, put away. You couldn't touch this. Everything was different. It doesn't say that in the Torah. No. The only thing in the Torah that it says is do not eat yeast. Period. That's
Do
it.
not eat what?
Yeast, leaven, yeast. When you make the bread and the dries.
Not to do the eats?
Yeast for 7 days. That's it. The Feast of Matzah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. During those 7 days, don't eat yeast. Yes, Richard.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm not so hard on rabbinic Judaism. Okay?
You see?
Had to do something to keep us together. I mean, it was not okay. It was awkward. They wanted to put a fence around the laws,
Right.
and other people, even Jews who become more Messianic Jews or Christian Jews, they make a distinction between rabbinic Judaism. They put down rabbinic Judaism.
Excuse me for 1 minute, Richard. I apologize if I sound like I'm putting it down.
No. Just let me finish. Many people do. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Especially in modern talk. It's kind of put down. Okay. I mean, and some extremists even say that what we have now is Judaism is actually younger than Christianity. They go that far because it's I don't agree with that, but they couldn't help it.
And they're still waiting for the guy.
I mean, I'm not happy with that. We weren't a flourishing people for a long time. And also, I'd just like to add that my rabbi once said that Shabbat means to cease, not just to rest, but to
I
cease.
can't hear you.
Okay, how about now? Okay.
It's not clear. It's not
Yeah,
clear.
you're not clear. Can you
Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to go off Bluetooth. So talk to someone else in the meantime. I'll come back.
Okay. Well, my intention is not to put down anybody. I don't want to put the rabbis down because I refer to them. Like I was looking up Rashi and Ibn Ezra, Maimonides. These rabbis, some rabbis are wonderful. They have good ideas. But when it comes to making, when they say that if they choose to do something and there are enough rabbis who agree, then they could
Overturn the law. Change the law.
They can change God's commandments. That to me is a little bit too much because it's only going to bring harm upon us. Because if God gave us these commandments, it's because he loves us and he wants us to turn to him and be protected by him. If we trust him, now I've seen this in my life. I have learned in most cases, and I'm still growing all the time, but I'm learning to take the faith that God has given me as a gift and to turn it to trust. And how do you trust? How do you, bitachon means you take a step of faith. If I'm afraid to do something, and then I read, God says, do not be afraid. So first I have to examine what it is I'm afraid of. If it's something that is not going to harm me, something that will do good, then I have to take a step of faith and see, maybe God is leading me down this path. You know, at the beginning, when the rabbi died, and I was called to do a message, and I hadn't done it, the rabbi would allow me to speak maybe 5 minutes, give a short little drush, but suddenly I'm giving a whole message on Shabbat. And so I knew that I had to learn to trust that God was putting me in this position and not to be afraid. So I took a step of faith, and the more I trusted him, the more I saw how he was helping me to do that. And that happens in our life. We have many fears. There's a lot of anxiety in this world right now because we're not trusting in God who protects us. We've made so many things into gods. Like I wrote down some of the things that I saw as gods. Our pride is a god. Pornography is a god to some people. Our comfort can be a god. A religion can be a god. Fear and anxiety can be gods. Social media, our cell phones. There's so many things that pull us away. And we need to learn how to trust him and to walk with him. And it's not an easy process. That's why it took us 40 years in the desert. Richard, did you have something else you wanted?
Speak about how when I was in, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, hold on, Brian.
Okay. When I was in Quebec, I saw the license plates there in the car, and it said something in French that someone told me means we remember.
Je me souviens, I remember, yeah.
Okay, but they told me that they don't remember, and they don't remember what they're supposed to remember.
Right.
Maybe that's maybe that kind of dynamic is a human thing. I don't know. I'm just tossing that out. Anyway, I said before that my rabbi one time, he said that the Shabbat means actually to cease because God ceased on the seventh day.
Right.
And so to continue with what I was saying, I don't like rabbinic Judaism. It's not my thing, okay? But I don't put it down. Excuse me. I can empathize with people who gravitate towards that.
Right.
Towards what? Sorry?
He can empathize with
people who gravitate towards that, who
Right.
hold that up.
Right.
Sometimes
Hold what up? Sorry.
Rabbinic Judaism.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay. I mean, we can't just have free for all, hippie Judaism.
Well, the Torah, but the Torah is not hippie Judaism. The Torah is really clear, but you're talking about a synagogue system, a congregation system.
Also, on the book of Devarim, that makes interpretation of prior text. Okay, so I would say that much of the Torah does not speak for itself. And if we don't have some standard, even a standard to rebel against, we might get lost. I don't know. I will mute myself again.
But what I want to understand is what you mean by that. Are you saying that the Ten Commandments is not a standard enough, and the rest of the Mishpatim and Chukim are not a standard enough? Because it seems to give us a.
We can all find loopholes, okay? When I was a student in college, I took a so-called philosophy of morals class, and we talked around the inquiry of is it really wrong? His adultery really wrong? Okay, we went back and forth on it. So there are philosophers, so-called philosophers or thinkers, who can write an elegant thesis to defend adultery. All right. So yeah, we do need courts are good too to have to settle disputes, but I don't think that the Ten Commandments speak for themselves always. Okay,
No,
I will
yeah,
now
but the
mute
rest of the Tanakh, the rest of the Torah itself, elaborates on them, tells us how, gives us examples. I mean, even in our own lives, like if I have an issue that comes up, like I had an issue with one of my kids the other day, and I know from the Torah it says, or from the Tanakh it says, in the counsel of many is wisdom. So I called Miriam, I called some of my friends, and they all gave me good advice. That's how I know that's what I'm talking about. Like we have enough in the Torah, in the Tanakh, to help us to live good and righteous lives. And that's what God wants from us, to live good and righteous life. Yeah, and I'm looking at the world right now and I'm saying the world is going through major crisis right now because not enough people are living good and righteous lives. The world is a mess. So, and if we want to go to the root of that, God chose a nation, Israel, to be Or L'Goyim, a light to all the nations, so that we would learn how to live the 10 commandments that he gave us. We were to live them and to bring them to be a light to all the nations.
But other nations don't want to accept that. So what do?
We don't want to accept that.
No, but other nations
we ourselves aren't living it until one person at a time. And all I can do is change myself. I can't change Jerry. I can't change Richard. I can't change Sonia or anyone else. All I can do is look at my own life, and my life will be an example, a light to those around me. And I see in many ways it is. And when it's not, then I have to look at what I'm doing. If I'm hurting somebody, if I said something that hurt somebody, or I did something, I have to make it right. That's what the Torah is teaching us. Torah's teaching, don't take from your neighbor. Be good to your neighbor. Be kind to them. Love God. Give back to God. Give back to the community. Give to society. Don't be so self-absorbed that you're not giving to anyone else. This is what the Torah is teaching us.
But we do. I'm sorry to interrupt. We do all the good things and everything. We're good to our neighbors. We're good to the other people, not only to our own people. And people do not appreciate us, And we've been condemned and hated and everything else. So
yeah,
but wait, you have to look.
We're doing all the right things.
Maybe you're doing all the right things, but are our nations doing the right thing, or is Israel doing the right thing? I mean,
well, what is the right thing? Of course, they're doing the right thing. Why wouldn't they? It's all politics. It's politics, like somebody's dictating you. You have to do this and this, otherwise we're not going to help you. So what do?
We are a nation divided, and in a nation divided cannot stand. And unfortunately, in the same way that we were in Egypt, we were a nation divided there. We were going after false gods. That's why God is always bringing us back in the Torah to the prototype of Egypt. Go and look at the way you were there. You were living in a foreign land. Here we're living in a foreign land. Many of the people that I know who are Jews, who are not following Torah, they're not interested. Some of them are very religious. Some of them care about nothing. Some of them are into Hinduism. Some are into Buddhism. Some are into all kinds of stuff. But you're not united as a people.
what you're saying in Israel, people are not united. Of course, there's the government who tries different things and it doesn't work. You try to be good with the Palestinians, everything, but they don't accept it. They just want war. They want
I
to
know.
kill us. So
I know.
how do you do it? How
We've
do you
all,
deal with people like that?
yes, Richard.
You see me? I don't see myself.
What?
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So, I don't. Okay. I'm about having separate kitchens and separate plates. I don't see anything terrible about that, and I even think it may be healthy. Here in Southern California, in some parts of town, they've got kosher houses that they sell. I mean, excuse me, kosher condos. Okay,
Oh,
they've got kosher condos.
that's
Okay,
crazy.
I'll take
That's
a
not
picture.
in the Torah. That's
I
not in the
think I
Torah.
have a. I think I. Okay, I mean, some people like to be meticulous about it. I
But
mean,
I think,
okay, so
And it's
Richard,
okay if they want to do it, but when you start imposing it upon everyone else, and I can't go to your house if I'm not as fanatic as you are about it, it's dividing the people.
I
It's
think you
divisive,
have to
Richard.
look below what these things say. Like, what is the bigger picture? It's not like we can't live our differences. We're not all going to be the same, and it's not terrible. If you want to have two kitchens, okay, have two kitchens, but don't forget the deeper and simpler truths of this world. Simply that, is there a God or isn't there a God? If there's a God, then he has given us absolutes, moral principles to live by. And so when you talk in your philosophy class, I took philosophy too at university and stuff, and it's fun and it's fascinating, and there were some really good things, but there are also certain things which are beyond debating. You could debate whether adultery is good or not, but the point of a God or something that's beyond us, it's that morality is not relative. You can't say, well, maybe adultery is good. You could think that, but if there's a goodness that's beyond us, that God has given us, if you believe that, then adultery is wrong. Plain and simple. You can't argue about it. I'm just saying, if you believe that, if you don't, that's your right too. But I'm saying the idea, the first commandment is about that there's a God in the first place. If there's not a God, then all right, adultery for some is okay, and for others it's not. Relative morality is not what God is talking about. So we have to get to the basics of everything. I don't know if I'm being understood or not.
Yeah, but not only that, adultery, a lot of the things that God was doing was protecting women. He always had woman in mind. We are the crown of God's creation, and man was supposed to protect us. When Adam didn't do that, we fell under these curses that we're now living under. And people don't understand the aspect of the soul. The soul is something that we cannot conceive in a three-dimensional world. When a male and female, when God said the male and female, the two of them come together and they shall be one, the souls unite.
You're frozen, Peggy.
No, you're frozen,
Or is
Miriam.
it just me who's
Yeah, it's you.
Peggy? You're frozen.
No, you're frozen, Miriam.
You were frozen. Was it just me?
Yes, it was just you. So the two, the male and the female join together to become one. There's something spiritual that happens when that is adulterated with adultery, that union. Right now, the union of male, female in a healthy family is being adulterated. The do not commit adultery is more than just people fooling around. It has to do with adulterating many of the things, and even adulterating the word of God. It's like I said to you the other day, Richard, when a cow gives milk, it's 100% milk. If you take 3% of it and you add the rest of it as water, it's adulterated milk, but they still call it milk. So what we have to understand is that God loves his creation and wants and gave us these simple 10 rules so that we could be taken care of. If you want to go outside them, fine, do it, but don't impose upon everybody else that this is the way. And then if you do, and you create a new religion, and you start to go against the things in the Torah, what you're saying is that I know more than God. This was the very first sin that Eve did. She was tempted by you too shall be like God. That's what we want. Everything is a God. We have all these icons today, all these idols that we build in this modern world. And what we have to do is take a look at the simple basics of what God is teaching us. We cannot come up with solutions for the world right now. It's gone too far. God is going to have to do it. He's going to have to, I don't know if he'll have to do the same 10 plagues. Maybe that's what he's doing with COVID and all these other things that are happening, the storms and the fires everywhere. Maybe we're a witness of the plagues hitting the world because he's fed up with us. We have been so disobedient.
I don't see my.
You don't see your what?
I don't see myself.
I see you.
Well, on my thing here, I see the five of you, but I don't see myself.
But we can see you, Brian. I don't know why you can't see yourself. Did you have something you want to add?
I saw one of those guys came and making put on the filling on me and he on the head and make a little blessing.
Okay.
And the Shear is coming soon, you know. And he invited me for this Saturday, though, to have the so-called schmaltz herring and stuff and the chopped liver.
Good. Go and enjoy.
But I also told him, when your wedding came already.
Oh, I'm sure he was thrilled to hear that.
No, he's still waiting for the guy.
He's still waiting. Well, we don't know what that's going to look like. Jerry, you've been very quiet. I know you're pensive. I know you're thinking. Do you have anything you want to add before we finish for this week?
How do you know I'm tempted?
I said pensive.
Oh, pensive.
Pensive.
Yeah, it could be pensive. That's right.
Yeah.
Who was laughing when I said you were tempted? Was that who was laughing when I said tempted? Was that
Sonia?
Sonia, it's Sonia. Good. Yeah, Sonia, you're very aware of things, Sonia. You and Richard. I've been listening to Peggy and Miriam quite a while, and it's always good and refreshing to hear different points of views. And it's important that we have different points of views because that makes us individuals, and we have to do things individually and as a group. And certain of the things that you both come up with, it must have further discussion. For while you're discussing it, perhaps you will understand yourselves more. And I'm not just talking about the two of you, like every one of us. Plus, maybe you'll impart some knowledge to us. Perhaps we'll learn a little bit. And while you may not change your opinions, you might modify your thinking. And certainly, I like the openness that we should accept different ideas. However, as far as Peggy is concerned, since she's hosting this, it's her mandate to stick with her ideas straight. She cannot really meander as much as we may. She has a different idea of things, so she has to be a little more stringent, which I think she is. But certainly, everything we're saying, it would require a lot more of discussion. There, I spoke for a minute or two, and I didn't say anything, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly. But I'll tell you something. Even in if you may think I'm stringent, but I'm very I don't know if the word is stringent, because my life, if you saw my life, I'm not stringent at all. But what I believe now is in boundaries, and that God set down with his 10 commandments, he gave us boundaries. When I lived outside the boundaries of knowing right from wrong, then I went on a lot of wrong paths, especially throughout the New Age, and especially when I delved into different religions. But I think that the Torah, biblical Judaism, gives us beautiful boundaries with,
Oh, that's
with,
Peggy. That's
and then
not
there's a lot of room.
Yeah, that's not a contradiction, Peggy. You have to stick with your stick by your guns, and I think we all understand and respect that. It's not a point of being strict. If you were to meander and be lax, well, what are you're the leader here, and you're portraying a certain idea, and you have to keep with that idea.
Right.
And, you can't. You can't meander from that idea, but we could question, and because we have to find our ideas, and you're longer time in that path. Now, Richard is a little bit open to different things, that rabbinic teachings and different things, and other ideas, and perhaps while we may not want to adopt those ideas, we can certainly learn by it, and perhaps he will modify his thinking. We'll learn something, and thank God. A bottom line, which we can all say, is at least we're all engaging in dialogue and discussion, and I think that in itself is fantastic. There again, I spoke for another minute and I said nothing.
Exactly. Thank you, Jerry. But you know what, while you're saying nothing, things come to my mind, which is very good. I'm just teasing you, because I think one of the things that makes me such, and I have to say almost fanatic, but I'm very, very given to what I do. I'm drawn to it like a moth to the flame. But it's like when I see the story of Abraham, when the three messengers, the three angels, came to him, and they told him that they were coming to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham begged them and said, "But God, if there are 50 righteous men, will you save it? Will you still destroy it?" And God said, "No, I won't destroy it for 50 righteous men." And then he said, "Well, if there are 40," and he kept going down until, "If there are 10," and he stopped at 10. And God said, "I will save it for 10." So I understand Abraham's heart, because he knew that what righteousness means is you place yourself on the right path. And the right path is, for me today, the path of Torah. I've gone down many paths in my life. And so to me, this is the path, and it's not complicated. It's the path that God, we read today, 10 commandments, period. That's it. Like, it's not complicated. It's hard. It's not easy, but it's not complicated. It's not easy.
Just what you said, Peggy, that Hashem is flexible and compassionate. Came out of yourself. Like, he went from 50 to 10, and so he's flexible, and I guess we can learn by that as well.
I beg your pardon.
Where are you talking?
Yes, Richard?
Richard? I have to go. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So if we can turn our lives around somehow and really start to seek God. He said, "If where you are now, if you will seek me with all your heart, you will find me." It's like I always say, seek and you shall find, because that was my journey of seeking God.
That little statement was a very, very powerful. I couldn't catch everything, but that was a very, very, very powerful line. If you seek for me truly and wholly with all your heart and soul, you will find me. I think that's a fantastic statement of its own, and I think you have that compassion, Peggy, and some of us are searching, and I guess it could be a lifelong search.
It is a lifelong search, and I'm continuing to grow. It's like our rabbi taught us. You know, we all have our journeys through this life. We all have shtick, issues, things in our family, stuff we have to deal with every single day. There are problems that come up. How do we deal with these things? Do we deal with them alone? Do we deal with them in community? And do we deal with them knowing that there's a God watching over us who helps us provide the answers for us? And I've witnessed that in my life, how I went from being broken, sick, needing a whole new life. And I watched him rebuild my life. I know without a shadow of a doubt that God is with me. If something happens, something bad, then I question myself, did I turn from him? What is the reason? Why is this happening? And I keep seeking. There are answers to absolutely every aspect of our lives. What we don't have an answer for today, we have to give it to God. Maybe he's testing us. He's building our character, whatever he's doing. But the more people who I can influence in some way to be a little more righteous and bring light into this world, the more we will stay the hand of God from what we call the end times, because we know it's coming. If we read the prophecies, we know that the American empire is going to fall. We know that Israel has got to go up to the top at the very, very end of times. We don't know when that is. We may live to see it. We may not. I don't know about a Messiah. I don't know about the next Savior. I don't know who it's going to be. The Christians believe that Jesus is coming back. The Messianic Jews believe that Yeshua is coming back. The Orthodox Jews believe Mashiach is coming, that he's already here. I don't know. I'm going to wait and see. All I can do is, like it says in The Lord of the Rings, all I can do is deal with what's been given me on my plate today. I have today and only today to handle. If I can make today better for somebody, not only for myself, but for somebody else, and be pleasing to God in some way, then I'll have done what I need to do on this earth and take it one day at a time. That's all we can do. Love our neighbor as we love ourselves. That's what the 10 Commandments is. Love God with all our hearts. Love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We need to love ourselves. So that's today. We went 2 hours today. I'm so happy. No wonder you were falling asleep, Jerry. Jerry,
Am I falling asleep?
No, he took a nap, so now he's awake.
I'm telling you, you made me feel like I have this very, when I used to do hypnosis, I practiced hypnosis for years, and I have a very soothing voice.
Really?
So I know I could put.
I'd like you to do some hypnosis with us one day. It's very nice.
Well, I used to make relaxation tapes, and
yeah, that's good. That's good. You could read me a tape. It's always good to, or sometimes good to relax. Sometimes.
Well, that's why I put you to sleep with the Torah. What a better way there to go to sleep.
Well,
you'll have good dreams. You ready to do the Aaronic benediction?
Yeah, I'm ready. We should have 2 lines of a song. We have to read by Simcha in happiness.
Yeah.
So give me 2 lines. You have you said the shadow.
Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim. You see, you know that one, Sonia.
Yeah, good. Sonia, go ahead, Sonia. Let's hear
it means
Sonia.
let the heavens rejoice.
Oh, that's what it means. I don't know what it means. I just know the melody.
Yeah, Yismechu shamayim, let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad.
It's funny, all our songs, it's like praying to God and all with prayers. And
yes.
Amazing.
The word Jewish comes from the Hebrew Yehudim. Yehudim in Hebrew means praisers of God. That's what it means. We are praisers of the one and only God, and our job is to bring others to him. The others hate us because they have their own gods, and they say their gods are better than ours, but they're not. And like the Pharaoh learned, the rest of the world will learn. But in the meantime, we have to do our part in it. We have to find our job, our role. Okay, Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, may it be thy will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, that this blessing which thou hast commanded to pronounce upon the people Israel may be a perfect blessing, forever free from stumbling and iniquity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'kdushasoi shel Aaron v'tzivanu levarechas amo Yisrael v'yavo Yavarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Yoel Adonai panav elecho v'chuneka Yisho Adonai panav elecho v'yosem lecho shalom. V'samu et shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani arvorchem.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. So, and I pray for each of us that that's exactly what God will do, that he will meet us, each of us, in the place where we are and guide us on our path, give us the answers that we're seeking, heal us in the places that we need healing, and help us to grow and to walk in him. Thank you so much for being with us, Miriam, for your input tonight was wonderful. Jerry, Sonia, was so good to see you again. Baruch, good to see you too. And we thank Richard, although he's gone already. So have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.
I see Richard, Peggy.
No, he's gone.
Oh,
yeah, he's got. He said he had to leave.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, have
Thank
a good
you,
week.
Peggy.
You're
Peggy.
welcome. Thank
Very
you.
good. I enjoyed it.
I'm
I'll
happy,
be back.
Sonia.
I'll
Good.
be back.
I'm happy to hear that. I'll send you
thank you,
the recording so you can send it out and share it with your friends. I hope, this message to me is so important and I want so many people to hear it. And sometimes part of me gets very sad because I feel like I know that I have the type of personality that loves to be popular. And the joke is that God has given me the most unpopular message of all. So I wish you Shabbat Shalom, and I'll see you again, God willing, next week.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Bye.
Shalom. Bye.
Bye, everyone.